But we're not done yet. To wrap up this afternoon session, we will have a panel discussion on financial cybercrime that will be powered by a lineup of industry-renowned business leaders and subject matter experts. Now, allow me to introduce these wonderful speakers in a lineup for this panel. Our first guest is Pablo Sanz, the Chief Technology Officer of AirAsia. Pablo is tasked to bring products alive to fulfill the AirAsia version of becoming #1 super app in ASEAN through an integrated data, product, and engineering approach to build better, deliver better, and keep learning. Our second guest is Colonel Sazali bin Sukardi, who is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Research at CyberSecurity Malaysia. Prior to joining CyberSecurity Malaysia, Colonel Sazali had served in the Malaysian Armed Forces for 22 years before retiring in 2009. Our third guest has 20 years of experience in IT management in financial institutions, Islamic banking, and corporate banking. Encik Noorhisham Rusmani is passionate about cybersecurity, digital transformation, and emerging technologies. And he currently serves as the Chief Information Security Officer at Mizuho Bank Malaysia. Our fourth guest is the Country Manager of Red Hat Malaysia. Eric Quah is responsible for overall sales and business aspects of Red Hat Malaysia, leading the country team to drive sustainable growth, as well as help in building stronger relationships with enterprise customers and partners. Lastly, but not least, our panel moderator, Alain last but not least, our panel moderator, Mr. Alain Schneuwly, has more than 25 years of previous experience in technology strategy, IT transformation, and complex solutions implementations. As the managing director, Alain drives Boston Consulting Group's Platinion business in Southeast Asia. This panel will be discussing about battling the financial cyber threat in the age of Corona. Remember, if you have any questions for the panel, please send them over. All right, the panel is getting ready. Stay tuned and we'll be back shortly.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me well? Yes, hello. My name is Alain from Boston Consulting, and very pleased to moderate this session this afternoon. We have a few very interesting people in the cybersecurity space, covering a few industry. We got Pablo from AirAsia. We got Noorhisham from Mizuho Bank in Malaysia. We got Sazali from CyberSecurity Malaysia, and then Eric and Daniel from Red Hat, which is the open source enterprise. So very good. Thank you so much. So just to get started, as you've seen in the last, we've been in this pandemic since about February, March last year. And this has a big impact on the industry. Some have been affected more than some others. I will start with my first question is that. How do you see the impact that this pandemic had from a cybersecurity point? But then we talk about digital transformation. But from a cybersecurity point of view, you've seen a lot of impact. Then we'll talk about the regulation a little bit to see understanding what the regulator has done in Singapore, in Malaysia, but in APAC, understand a little bit how you've been affected, whether you found it interesting and useful, some of these regulations that came out. And then obviously, a lot of the work has shifted from on-premise to on-site for employees, for suppliers, and so on. So I'd like to understand a little bit how you adjusted to this remote working and how far. And last but not least, cyber threats and cyber attack have not diminished and not increased. So obviously, you had probably to invest. So the question I really have will cover is, how did you manage this risk? So maybe we start with you, Pablo. I mean, you've probably been the most affected in the travel industry, right? Yeah, at AirAsia. So did you see, in any case, a resurgence of what has been the impact of COVID?
Yeah, I think we, on the travel side, we had very unique use cases of some cybersecurity attacks that had that had an origin in China and Vietnam mainly, where they were arbitraging our fares. So in that area, we have seen a slowdown because that was subject to the international travel. So it slowed down some of our projects that we had to protect us against that. But we have used that time in order to build up our own tools in order to control this kind of attacks. And also, as you see, we are diversifying across all the spectrum. We don't do only travel anymore. We have our own part that does money, big pay, and all the e-commerce and delivery stuff coming up. So we are finding new use cases and new areas where we get impacted, and we are discovering new areas where we were not exposed and that have a potential fraud and cybersecurity issues little by little, right?
Interesting.
So I think we have migrated from an approach that was purely airline that slowed down to a much wider range where we are encountering a set of different problems, but the airlines, once the travel conditions are established and we go back to international, we will be prepared to these kind of new threats.
So for you, it's been an opportunity to discover or uncover some use cases that were not necessarily.
Correct. We discovered that, and also with the widen of the spectrum on our accounts, security, and so on, we have been reinforcing everything, moving from single factor authentication, double factor, and maybe triple factor eventually in the future, right? 2FA was the standard there, but
so you're ready to restart, yeah?
Yeah. We started 1 year and a half ago, and we have been building through this year, maybe slowing down some of the investment to be opportunistic on the momentum when we activate them.
Hisham, from a bank perspective in Mizuho, because I mean everybody is connected, right? Is also the interesting topic by the supply chain. You're a travel agent, you still need to make payments. You need a bank payment for the hearing. So what has been the impact for you at Mizuho in COVID-19? Any?
Okay, Alain. Okay, thanks for that question. Okay, for the banking industry, not specifically for Mizuho, okay, because there are tremendous impact due to this pandemic, okay, because for those traditional banking where they have to come to branch to perform a transaction, our branches are closed as early as 1 p.m. Okay, instead of normally we close at 3:30. Okay, like that. Okay, that one is from one aspect from the customer point of view. The second point of view, we have a challenge for the staff work from the office. Okay, because staff work from office is common. However, due to this pandemic, the staff who can come to office just 30% out of the 100%. So from the technology perspective as well as a risk perspective, we have to come up with so-called the work from home, which is not only for banking, but for mostly across the industry. Okay, and this working from home is not is so-called new in Malaysia, because before the pandemic, there are just a few organizations which allow the staff to work from home, maybe just once a week or maybe once a month. Okay.
So were you prepared from an infrastructure to scale and to provide the scalability, the reliability, and the security for this increased remote work, or was it a challenge?
Yes, for the bank, yes, we actually, in terms of the infrastructure, we have been ready for the for work from home, because that one is the ready infrastructure. That's just a matter of whether we want to turn it on or not. Okay, because this work from home infrastructure, we are leveraging on because we have the parent bank. Okay, so we are leveraging the same infrastructure for working from home. That's all.
Right. Okay. And Sazali, on a broader front, because you have, I think, a view, given your work across industry, across line, do you have a view of what's been the impact on the COVID-19 for your clients, the people you work with?
Thank you, Alain. Based on my responsibility in CyberSecurity Malaysia, our task is to provide cyber security services and expertise to the stakeholders. So we can see that we are very much interacting with each other, not only in secure networks, but also in public domain. So we have to look at the whole ecosystem, the whole supply chain, because vulnerabilities, risks do exist at any point within the network. And maybe, for example, certain organizations are secure, but when they are interacting with vendors, suppliers, they also have to look at security at the points where they interface. And these are the things that we have to look into. When we talk about cybersecurity, we have to look at the whole perspective, the whole ecosystem, not only on technical aspect, but also on the procedure process. And very important is the people who are behind the machine. So
yeah, I agree with you.
During this pandemic, people interact and communicate remotely. And we talk about acquisition of technology. But our worry is that we don't want to pose any obstacle or become a stumbling block of the technology application. But we must realize all these technologies are invented to provide convenient purposes. Not much security is emphasized at the first place during the invention or creation of this technology. So therefore, there are many vulnerabilities that we have to address at the first place when the technologies are invented. And to make sure cybersecurity developed, designed, can be very challenging when we talk about interacting with various stakeholders, ministry, government ministry, industry, academia. So what we do is that we have to be very dynamic and very positive. All these things are part of our nature of job, and it's good to learn experience from this situation. And during pandemic, of course, now we are still under MCO, Movement Control Order. We are still working at home. So, and we must realize that during this situation, we are very much dependent on digital devices and connectivity. And the more we use these digital devices and get connected to networks, actually, the more we create attack surface. And therefore, the more we are vulnerable. So these are the things that criminals try to exploit. And sometimes even advanced attack, they start with simple attack at the very low level, targeting people. Ignorant and negligent, like phishing attack. So we have to look not only at the low level, but at the organization level, but importantly, at the strategic level where the attack comes from. So it is a ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very interesting. I fully agree that the aspect of the organization, the process are the most important, because what we see, right, is that about 70%, right, of the failures come from an organization point of view, not from a technology. Because look, these days everybody has the technology, right? It's just a matter of organizing yourself and securing the right budget to transform the organization. So very important. Then the question for you is I mean, as a provider of solution, right, open source solution for the enterprise, a related question is that, have you seen a lot of companies embarking on digital transformation actually in the last since the pandemic, accelerating their digital transformation to be at the forefront of and be super competitive? What is your observation?
Yeah, so for us, Red Hat as an enterprise open source provider, in the past 3-5 years, we have seen a lot of companies started their digital transformation journey, and we all know they are due to a lot of reasons. Younger people are getting to the market, with the newborn of fintech, insurtech, a lot of new innovation, which is coming to challenge the traditional enterprises, right? But during this pandemic, it has definitely accelerated the digital transformation journey for a lot of customers that we've spoken to. I mean, we throughout this throughout this event, we all know, right? One is a company has to shift the way they deliver their product and services to digital services. So in the past a year and a half to 2 years, we have seen a lot of companies accelerating their the brick and mortar model into digital services. And with that, right, there comes with the key topic of what we are discussing. How do we beef up security? How do we make sure that our customers or enterprises are looking at security from end to end, including cyber threat? So from Red Hat as a provider, we start off at looking the development of incorporating the security feature with as early stage as our development cycle, right? I mean, compared to the past, we always leave it to the end. But from a customer's perspective, right, I think I agree with a lot of the discussion here, right? Security is not just about technology. A lot of the cybersecurity that happens throughout the exploitation of the processes and also the awareness of the consumer like us. So from Red Hat, a part of us just going in to provide the technology, we definitely work with our clients to look through each and every step of the process to make sure that the technology can handle that part of the process. And if not, right, the banks or insurance have to communicate well what are the potential risks that the user may come across using those digital services.
Interesting. I was hinting before that this is our observation as well, is that a lot of the stakeholders, the CEO, the board members are not necessarily aware or paying attention to the cybersecurity risk. And this is an open question for a lot of people here online. Is that also your impression or perception? And they leave it very often to the technology organization to deal with that. Is it also your perception, or you think things have changed, evolved in that way? So I'm throwing the question to anybody who wants to pick it up.
Well, if I don't mind, I can answer
yes,
based on our operation with some of our clients. I think, like I said, as most of the customers that we work, with, have no choice but to offer their digital services. And at the board level, they also realize that when the banks or enterprises are exposing their services, they are also need to be aware of the threats that they're facing. I guess most of the CISO or the CIO, CTO that we've spoken about, the mind share as well as the education at the board level has also increased over the past 2 years, right? Security as one of the big topics, it becomes one of the topmost priority in their organization, and as well as how do they ensure, right, cyber threat are also being taken care of. I guess in a nutshell, we have seen a lot more acceptance at the board level that they need to make sure that overall security and risk is at the top priority when they embark on any business decision.
Hisham, how is it that the Mizuho, is your CEO concerned about it, or it doesn't?
Yeah,
doesn't care much.
I tend to agree with Eric. Okay, because for organization like what you call like the bank, like Mizuho Bank, okay, we do have board awareness. Okay, for past a couple of years, actually, we have conducted a few awareness for board internally, as well as for the board director looking for their own source. Okay, so from that, we also have the regulators like Bank Negara Malaysia. They already come up with the regulators on the risk management in IT, which one of the area that they taken care actually on the governance, which include the board responsibility, okay, where the boards will also responsible on the cybersecurity aspect, as well as to oversee the what I call the significant project that we want to implement.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
No, I agree with you. There's been, and that's come to my second point around the regulation. We've seen the regulator, Singapore, MAS, ABS, HKMA in Hong Kong, the Pangara in Australia, APRA. They've been pretty active, right, during this pandemic, issuing new regulations to raise awareness again of the kind of threats and encourage their members, right, to think a little bit of what they should be doing. Now, the reaction to it has been interesting from my point of view. There's been some actors have taken a very compliance approach to it. Tick the box. I'm going to do what the regulator do, and some have done, and maybe this is what Pablo was saying, like look at the use cases, what is possible, right, to happen, go beyond the regulation, right, beyond the compliance. So I'd like to get your view a little bit, whether you found this regulation useful for your day-to-day job and justify some of the investment, or you had already planned.
Okay, when we use the regulation as our pushing factor, that one, this is the so-called top-down approach, where we don't have a choice, but we have to comply with, okay? Because a couple of years ago, could be the cybersecurity is not the hot topic that everyone is talking about, okay? However, after they can see, after a lot of circular or monograph or even the white paper talking about the cyber risk is the first ranking or the top 5 among the operational risks that currently we have, then the regulators took into this area, what you call, seriously. In fact, for Malaysia, recently we have the Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategy for 2020 to 2024 implemented. For Bank Negara Malaysia, we also have the risk management in IT. Not only that, for what you call, PayNet on cyber, what you call, PayNet on payment and settlement system provider also, they come up with the cyber resilient framework where all the members have to follow on it. Okay, so like it or not, so we have to comply with, and then at the same time, we must be at par in the industry as well as for the Malaysia as a whole.
No, I agree with you. It's better than nothing, and I think the regulator plays his role there. I mean, the maturity of organizations are different, right? Some are very aware, and they go ahead and invest and address the technology, the process, and the organization, and some are more back foot kind of approach to things and waiting for the regulator to tell them what to. So yeah, you see both. So Sazali, what is your experience? What have you seen in the market a little bit from a regulatory perspective? Has it played a role in kind of improving the cybersecurity posture of companies? Have you seen a lot of investment?
Yeah. We have to balance between technical and non-technical aspect, because at the end of the day, we have to address cybersecurity as a whole ecosystem. That's why in the issue of governance, all the various parties have to work together. Legal authorities, law enforcement, policymakers, technical agencies like us, academia for research, they have to work together, because we can have a very good technology in place, and we have a very good people that manage the technologies. But if we don't have effective regulations or legal system to enforce and to make sure people comply, those technical or training can serve no purpose. At the end of the day, criminals, they are always try to find ways how to penetrate our system, because they have motive. Criminals have existed in the past and they still continue now, and even more challenging in the future because of emerging of technologies. So it is our objective in the end as a cyber security community to make sure that these criminals cannot do whatever they want. So we want to arrest them, and at the end, we want to arrest and put them in the jail. But if we don't have a very strong legal system, these people, even though we know they are guilty, but in the end, we are not able to relate or connect their criminal activities and the perpetrator, so they can escape unpunished. So it can cause frustration not only to the cybersecurity people, but also the people, because there are so many cyber threats and we do so many arrests, but because of lack of credible legal systems, all these criminals can exploit the gaps and can escape unpunished. And the issue is that our technology changes very fast, and sometimes the legal system cannot cope with the technology changes. So that's why this is where all various parties have to sit down and discuss, and how we as technical people advise our lawyers, for example. The lawyers, they don't have the technical background. Their training are traditional. But yet, today when we talk about criminal, they are mostly white collar. They are using computers. They are basically technical minded. Technical minded. They have a technical expertise and knowledge. So we want to have a very strong legal system, and we must have qualified regulators and lawyers to deal with it. And they cannot do alone, because this is not their training. So
no, I agree. Everybody is part of it, and it's not a question of if, but when.
And now anything happen, customer or the victim can take legal actions. So they can sue the company, for example, especially when their personal information are compromised.
That's right.
Yeah, they can take legal actions. So it can cause more impact and implication to the industry or to the company. So regulation is very important, and we have to comply. Okay, thank you, Alain. Okay, thank you.
So there's some So one question I have is for everybody, and related to the remote working. Obviously, the current situation has forced many companies, right, to work remotely, and as we discussed before, this has increased the attack surface. Do you believe this is something to stay? And you say Mizuho, you had already kind of a policy for remote working, if you said right, yeah. What about AirAsia? Is it something that you plan to continue? Is it kind of in the fabric of the company and the culture, the remote working? And have you addressed the risk related to this?
Yeah, sorry, I was mute. I think it goes against the company culture actually in AirAsia. But currently the status is that we are not going to work, and probably when we retake, we will be still in team A, team B, and there is a lot of exceptions with people that have kids and cannot bring them to school and whatever. I think at least my hope on the tech department is that we can give freedom to work from home, but the people wants to come to office. I have said a lot of times that we are a fun company to work with, a fun company to work for. I think there is a lot of things happening on the offices, and we would miss a very important part of the culture with a strict remote working policy. But I hope this crisis at least gets at the best of both worlds, that people want to go to the office, but it is free to spend 3 days in Bali working from Bali, if I may, right? So I hope that's the situation, the outcome. It can be another place that is not Bali, but I think that flexibility is going to be very key to retain also key talent going forward, because the key talent, if they perform, it doesn't matter where they are placed, right?
Yeah. But related to this, I mean, a lot of companies got the challenge to adopting, not from a security or scalability point of view, but a lot of the process that they were going through, they were not necessarily suited to actually do it from on a remote location. Has it been your experience as well?
I think on the case of so when we have had the opportunity to go to the office, I think we feel safer in an office environment as an end-to-end process. If you zoom into the product engineering and data processes, we were in place already to do this. We have teams in Philippines, we have teams in India, we have partners in Vietnam, we have the main team in Malaysia, right? So VPN security was set up, and the processes are there. We work in sprints, we have daily ceremonies, and then everybody goes to do their job. As a developer and product community, I think we were ready. Actually, we have been ready for a very long time, right, to do this. When you attach that to the business needs and the need to react to something that is happening in the moment, I think we miss that human interaction, right? So I fix it by going for coffees with people that lives around me, right, in KL, when possible, and basically, I think the combination is the key. But we are ready to work remotely.
Okay.
We have been doing it for the last 3 years since we opened Bangalore office.
What about the others? Is it your same impression? Do you believe you're ready as an organization to work remotely and that security aspects have been addressed?
I think it is going to become part of the culture, especially for the executive and top management. We don't work within office hour because the criminal, they don't have office hour. And most of the time, if they want to attack, they will attack during, we are having holidays. So the good time. So we can see the trend during holidays and people are not in the office. These are the time they exploit the intrude do at once. So we must be able to set our mind. Working from remote environment is going to be a culture, and criminal cyber attack happen almost every single second beyond office hour. So we cannot say to the management, "Don't contact me if cyber attack happen," because it is not within office hour. We have to respond. We have to provide report, and we have to communicate and exchange information. And mostly happen after office hour, maybe during weekend or holidays. So it must become a part of the culture. And of course, in my experience, during our time in office, we brought down with meeting. So we don't have really time to plan and to do research. And most of the time, we prepare paper or document at home. Office, normally we use for meeting discussion officially. So this is my view. And we have to be ready to adopt the culture of working in remote environment. And not only is convenient, it is the future. Thank you, Alain.
So maybe one question more, 1 point more related to the investment, specifically to cybersecurity risk, before we go to the Q&A, and we have quite a few questions from the audience, and thank you so much. So one of the observation is many companies have a very clear view on what they need to invest. Right? Have your project A to Z very clear. Now the big challenge they have is to justify sometimes this investment to the top of the house. I'm not talking about the hygiene stuff, right? Okay, I'm talking about the special projects that require investments. And how do you justify this to the CEO? Because in the end, the board and the C-level needs to provide that. So have you had that challenge in your organization? And how did you go about justifying this investment to basically reduce the would be keen to hear your view. I don't know, Hisham or Pablo, if you want to comment, or Sazali.
Maybe I will take this question. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, because to prioritize the cyber portfolio and the challenges when we want to present to top management or even the board, right? Okay, first we need to make them aware where are we. Okay, we must make them know our security posture. Okay, before we can introduce any new product or any new solution for them. Okay, and then we also need to in line with what are the business goal or the strategy for that. Yeah, and then when we know what are the business goal, and we can realign our security strategy into it. Okay, so that one is one point of it. Okay, the second point, when we are talking about the project, now because most of the company now talking about the digitalization, all that. Actually, digitalization not just about converting the current process to digital. Okay, actually they go beyond that, because when we are talking about the digitalization, conversion from the old process to the new process, actually we are only focusing on the technology, but we forgot about the people and process. Because when we want to apply the digitalization, actually the process also need to be changed. Because when we want to apply, example like the mobile apps, right? So the current process, maybe we use the what we call waterfall methodology. With this, the what we call digitalization, we may need to change to the agile methodology, where we can change rapidly. Okay, so on top of that, we also need to ensure the product that we want to launch also usability for the user. Okay, without compromising the security. Also, what I call, we need to ensure during the project, we must always have in mind security in design. So the process, when we start developing the project or developing any new initiative, we must take into consideration that security must be in place.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah.
Security by design is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, from the process perspective, we also need to know from the other angle, which is from the people perspective, because the people must be equipped with the knowledge. They must be aware on the new process that they have to adopt. Okay, example on the agile, they must know how the agility works before they can they can contribute to the organization. Well,
but Isham, all this stuff is music to my ears and everybody's ears. A lot of my experience, a lot of the board people, the C-level people, right, who in the end approve, right, expenditure, do not understand it. They trust you, right? You know the how. Right? The question is that, say you have 5 million or 10 million ringgit to invest, yeah? Where are you going to invest? Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, they're going to ask you where to invest. What is the best things to invest in to reduce my security? That's basically the heart of the question. It's not so much on the how, where to put my money, right?
Yeah.
Like you do in any business project. That's the harder question for many organizations. Obviously, they're compliant, yeah, things that you need to do, right? And this one is an easy one because you need to comply with the regulator and so on. But then there's additional things. And from my experience, it's been a challenge for many organizations, right? But I'll be keen to have the view of everybody.
Okay, to answer that, okay. That's why just now I mentioned about the business objective or the business goal versus the security posture. So these two must be in line. Okay, the business, of course, as a board of director, they wanted to have a lot of profit kind of thing, and then they want to see when they implement one project, how fast the ROI is they're going to achieve. So when we present this, we have to realign the business objective versus the security requirement on that. Yeah, then.
Can I barge in, Alain?
Yeah, Pablo, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we come in an industry that probably is less hardly regulated than banking. It has different kind of regulations, and it's more on not on the digital side, but on the flying passenger side, right? So basically, we have cybersecurity per design in the tech that we build, right? We do our pen test before going live. We have we fix it. If not, we cannot go live. We classify our threats in priorities and whatnot. When we are launching anything or deploying anything, we do it automatically. But we realized that in order to adapt to all this business flexibility and follow the business in some way, right? In that sense, we needed to implement tools that would give us flexibility, and it would help us prevent some business-related attacks, because it's not everything is a technology-related, right? As I was saying before, the arbitraging of fares, it's something that is related to the way we airlines manage our revenue, right? So basically, we have deployed the tools that give us the flexibility to do it. As a first step, we had people behind those tools monitoring this possible potential account takeovers, fair arbitraging, and other use cases that we have seen moving into the e-commerce space. But we are moving towards a more machine learning based open ecosystem where we can do that without people behind the scenes, right? By detecting the trends and seeing how these cyber attacks interact with our ecosystem, and trying to detect machines behind those cyber attacks mainly, right? When it is human, everything becomes more blurry. But when it's done by machines, I think we have what we have done is a framework to allow us to protect our personal information and our transactions and our revenue against this kind of attacks.
Interesting. There is one, I'm going to go to some of the questions because I think some are really interesting. So the one from TJ related to the online payment, and it is true, right? Whether you like it or not, whether you do your shopping, you buy an airline, you go through payments. Now, a lot of these payments have a two-factor authentication, right? Authorization, yeah? You have a credit card and then you have a 3D, yeah? But still, some merchants do not provide 3D, it's like just 2D kind of authentication. So what is your view on this? Is it a regulator thing, or is it the merchant to impose on your supply chain to comply with the best security practice? How do you deal with this?
So a funny thing is we have 3DS in most, I would say 95% of our flows, right? But there are, and Malaysia is hard on 3DS. Actually, I can tell you an anecdote. We tried to turn off 3DS for one of our flows 3-4 weeks ago, and our rejected cards went to 30% from 11%, right? And this happens because some of the Malaysian banks don't accept no 3DS transactions. But it's a battle between security and convenience. I don't know if every time that I take an e-hailing, that I would like to, or I order food, I would like to be asked for my OTP. It has become convenient not to be asked for that, right? So, in my opinion, and I don't have any regulation, I follow regulation on that, but my opinion is that the user should be able to decide when it wants it on 3D or not 3D in some way, right? Like,
yeah, I agree with you. This is a risk on the user side. Yeah? And it could have an impact on the bank, but also the side of
we allowed to do no 3DS so that the users 3 weeks ago, and the bank rejected all the transactions because I think there is a regulation in Malaysia that you explicitly need to accept in some of the banks that no 3DS transaction, right? So it was fun because we did it in order to apply convenience, and then Malaysian regulation it needs some tricks to make it happen, right? There are tricks to make it happen, but it's on the gray areas, just to be clear. So it's a fight between security and convenience, I guess.
So a little bit related to this is we all authenticate, yeah, when we work from home, using different means. Then the question comes is that, how about the device you're working on? Could be you bring your own device depending on the policy of the company. So is it something you allow? Is it if it's not a company provided device, you authenticate the device as well? How do you deal with that? Would be keen to understand. Maybe Hisham, whether you have a point of view from a banking perspective.
Okay, for Mizuho Bank, we have a policy that we cannot use our own device.
Yeah.
So each staff, they will provide with the company laptop when they want to access from home. Okay. On top of that, the infrastructure, we also include the two-factor authentication. Okay, so that when the staff want to connect, they have to authenticate via their mobile phone. Yeah, that's all.
By mobile phone, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else on the topic? Yeah.
We use Google ID, so any behavioral or perimetral authentication that it's available in Google, we can turn it on and off. Currently, we have two-factor authentication based on different scenarios. Even the devices, we have a big amount of Chromebooks, so you tag also into the Google ID for
so basically, you're using technology to help you and AI,
yeah,
the service provider. And I think this is a good point, because I mean the risk, whether you have device provided to bring you on, will remain. There is always a residual risk. So this is something that the business has to understand and care. But then you, of course, on the other side, you have to provide them, explain to them what are the measures you take to minimize this.
yeah.
I think leveraging technology and AI is definitely a way. And this is what we've seen as well in the a lot of the companies have adopted open source cloud services, because they really provide them net when it comes to security in terms of skill that they don't necessarily have with them within the organization. And I would say that's probably the main factor. But of course, resiliency, scalability, and so on. And related to that topic, have you seen a little bit of an acceleration in your digital transformation of the adoption of cloud? It was not something specific I wanted to mention, but just trying to understand whether the cloud services has seen as a means to address some of these security challenges.
We are fully operating in cloud. We got rid 2 years ago of in-house services. And we are now maybe finding some trade-offs here and there where we go back for some things that are cheaper, but I would say that we are 99.9% cloud-based. So yeah, we didn't accelerate anything because it happened before the pandemic.
Is it your observation also your clients using leveraging your platform? Are they doing it more and more on the cloud, or you see some resistance?
So from what we have seen, definitely in the past 2-3 years, right, we have seen an acceleration of our clients to consume technology as a service. And in fact, with the latest, My Digital Blueprint that being announced by the government, with the initiative of building a local data center by the public cloud player, that will accelerate more in terms of the from enterprises to move to the cloud. Now, very importantly, in fact, I just had a conversation with one of the CTO for a bank a few days ago. So even at the board member, right, when they present any of their initiatives, their younger board members are being appointed, and at the board level, they will ask the C level, right, how come you are never considering to move your workload to the cloud? And this is what we are talking about banks, and banks are traditionally very, very conservative, right? But with the, with now a more clear guidelines from the central bank, as well as the availability of a local data center in the future, we are foreseeing a lot more adoption towards moving to the cloud. And very importantly, customers also know that a cloud journey is not just pure cloud journey, right? They have to make sure that they embark on a hybrid cloud journey to make sure that the platform that they choose are agnostic and secure, be it whether they run in the environment or be it when they run in the cloud provider.
Interesting. Is it Sorry, Sazali, is it also your view?
Okay. My concern as a user especially, I want to impose my cyber security need. So of course, the challenge of course, cloud is the trend of current technology, but the issue is how we impose our security requirement on cloud services. How we ensure whoever service provider comply. What happens is that in most cases, industry and companies, they just leave to the vendors or service provider to handle security. But for the point of view by cyber security professional, it's not good. When it comes to cyber security, you must take charge. You must impose your requirement. You cannot leave to other parties to handle. So these are the challenges. So, and everything is about trust. How trust are we in the cloud services, and how can we impose? And based on this requirement, we can work from there. And to neglect the use of cloud computing may be impossible nowadays because we need to get technologies. But the challenge is how we impose our requirement and how we can put trust in the service and how we can work together with all parties, especially the vendors and service provider. At the end of the day, we have to meet our goals. Yeah? We want to meet our goals. So these are the things that we have to consider, the risk management and the investment that we have to do. But the goal is how we can meet strategic objectives and how cyber security serves as enabler. Our cyber environment is safe and secure to enable the top management or the company to meet the objective. So we are here, cyber security professional. We don't work in isolation. Our job here is to function as enabler, to make sure the top management, to make sure the company meet the objective. But how we pass the ideas is the challenge.
So we have a few questions in the related to technology, related to firewalls, related to penetration tests. I will not go through this in details, but again, and I'd like to relay some of my colleagues said, right, is that technology is just a small part, right, of the equation. And obviously, if you don't have any firewalls, if you don't have any, if you don't do any penetration of your application before you deploy, then of course you increase your risk level. So I would say there is some hygiene that needs to be done, and technology can be evaluated. But let's not be mistaken in the end. A lot of the people who hack you will exploit not the technology, will exploit weaknesses in your organization. Whether your suppliers, whether your process, whether your government, and that is seen again and again. Right? It's rarely a technology challenge unless you have absolutely nothing in place, right? Which these days most companies have invested in the right. So this is why we urge you, right, to really look at it from an organization. As the biggest threat is the external person, right, but also your input. Okay, how much time we have left? I don't think we have a lot of time left yet. We're on the top of half an hour. So, do you guys have any parting comment you would like to make in terms of cybersecurity in your own organization, in terms of your plans to address some of the challenges that you had related with the remote working, related to regulation, as we discussed, or simply the ability to justify. So I will open the floor here. If you like.
Maybe overall, Alain, if I may share my perspective.
Yes, thanks.
The truth is that cyber security cannot cope with technology because technology moves very fast. No matter what we do in cyber security, we must expect cyber attack will happen. So, of course, we have to plan, we have to analyze and put the best security measures in place. But from experience and all the previous lesson learned, you can see that cyber attack will happen because the criminal, the bad guys are always ahead. But more importantly, how we detect if there is any intrusion, because that's why cybersecurity go beyond technical. So our ability to, for example, to predict cyber threat, and if it does intrude our system, how fast we detect and how we respond to cyber attack in order to minimize the losses, so that we can continue function and to secure our interest, the interest of stakeholders and customer. And at the end of the day, we meet our objective. So it is more than technical issues. It's about procedures. And it's about how we look into the whole ecosystem. And at the end of the day, we have to be adaptive to the rapidly changing threat environment.
Actually, yeah, thank you. I think I agree. There was an interesting question I'd like actually in the panel, is that what would be your advice to small and medium companies? Because obviously the task is pretty daunting, yeah, in terms of investment. And those are, a lot of these small and medium companies, if they want to be there, they need to be online. They need to provide services online, e-commerce, will be exposed in some shape or form to the same. So we need to kind of address these cybersecurity challenges. They will need to invest. So what would be your advice to the small and medium company who don't have necessarily the deep pocket that the big enterprise you're serving?
Yeah, it might not be very popular amongst cybersecurity experts, but I'm the CTO, the cybersecurity, the CSO of AirAsia is someone else. I think you need to be sensitive with return of investment of what you do, right? You cannot build an infrastructure for a scale. It doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity or if it's any other thing at a pace that outpaces your business in any case. I would advise that there are a lot of cloud providers these days that gives you a basic, the basic support and the basics tool to do it, included with the flexibility and the capability of scaling up. So, and they have a lot of programs to start for free in the low tiers, right? So most of them are at a very cheap cost. So I would put that part of my organization, if I would be a SME, into some of these ones, because they will do the best that they can for you. You might outpace them with your business and doing fancy stuff, but then you will find that moment where you have to catch up, right, with that and put your own tools. It happened also to us, moving from an airline to somewhere else. We had one use case, and until we didn't expand, we didn't need to move beyond that, right? And for a small, medium company, if you put your budget in protecting you, maybe you kill all your sales at the end of the day. So be careful, and there are a lot of cool solutions in cloud or software as a service out there that can help you have an 80% level of security, we want to call it that way, that is enough for you guys.
I agree with you. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I think yes.
Now, so coming from us as a technology provider, right? There are two parts. The SMI SME is very key, right? As they pivot their business from brick and mortar to to the e-commerce and so on and so forth. As what Pablo has mentioned, the advice is make sure they have to address the standard security that enables their online transaction, whether it is to their customers, to their suppliers, and so forth, right? Because the cost, you see, the cost of not, or rather, the effect of not adhering to that will be far more greater if they ever come into circumstances of a cyber threat, right? On the other side, as what you have mentioned earlier, how do we, from a cybersecurity, I think this, I totally agree with Sazali. We have to look into this from the whole ecosystem, as well as from the end-to-end perspective, right? Even as of now, when we work with our customers to look into develop their application for their customers, we have to rope in the security department or security folks at the beginning stage of their development journey. This is to make sure that coming from not just from a technology, but from a process and also from the people, we have to address it early to find the gap before that services will be rolled out to the public.
That's right. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining this session. I think we are at the end of it. It was very insightful. I appreciate for your time, and I hand back to Sanz for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye bye. Take care. Bye.